There's a version of you that lands in Thailand on day one and he genuinely feels like he's made it. Cheap beer, warm air, a condo view that looks like it belongs on a postcard. No alarm clock, no boss, no pressure, just freedom. And he sits there thinking, why didn't I do this years ago? He even messages someone back home and says it's straight. Best decision I ever made. And for a while, he really believes it. But fast forward a few years, and the story starts to split. Some of those men are still here. Calm, settled, they've built routines, adapted, and in many cases are living better than they ever did back home. But others are gone, back to Ohio, Manchester, Brisbane, quietly explaining it. It just didn't work out, mate. And then there's a third group, still here physically, but something has changed. Same bars, same streets, same conversations, but the spark is gone. The structure is gone, and they're not really building a life anymore, just filling time. Same country, same visa, same weather, completely different outcome. So what actually decides who thrives? It's not luck, and it's not just money, because I've seen broke retirees do incredibly well here, and wealthy men struggle quietly every day. The real difference is something else. What happens across a series of predictable phases that almost no one talks about before they move? This isn't a travel guide. This is a 5-phase survival blueprint for the first 5 years of retirement in Thailand. And if you're already here, you probably recognize exactly where you are before I even explain it. So let's start where everyone starts, the honeymoon. Year one feels like winning, and that's exactly why it's dangerous. You've spent decades working, mortgage, family, responsibility, routines, and then suddenly it all stops. You're sitting on a balcony in Hua Hin or Chiang Mai with a mango shake in your hand. No pressure, no boss, no schedule. And your brain does something predictable. It switches into holiday mode. Everything feels temporary, like an extended break that somehow never ends. But it isn't a holiday. This is your new life now. And that's where the first mistake happens. In holiday mode, you don't think in years. You think in experiences, in upgrades, in why not? And that's where the money trap opens. A condo that feels like settling in properly. A motorbike because it fits the lifestyle. A car because it feels easier. And sometimes relationships move faster than they ever would back home. Not because you've changed, but because the environment feels lighter, freer, less constrained. When freedom meets novelty and a bit of loneliness, decisions feel right in the moment, but aren't always reversible later. Roger is a good example. Retired at 54, solid pension, intelligent and prepared. But in the first year, he built a house in Isan, near his partner's family. It made sense until it didn't. 6 months later, the reality didn't match the version he imagined. Isolation, distance, family dynamics, lack of structure. None of it shows on a 2-week visit, but it shows when it becomes permanent. So he stepped back, moved temporarily back to Texas, not because he failed, but because he made a long-term decision in a short-term mindset. And that's the real risk in year one. Not intelligence, restraint. That's why I always talk about a no-buy year. Rent everything. Delay everything that requires long-term certainty in the first year. Because relief is powerful. It makes everything feel safe. even when it isn't fully understood yet. And when you feel free, you assume your decisions are free too, but they're not. A tourist optimizes for experience. A resident optimizes for sustainability. And that switch doesn't happen immediately. So the rule in year one is simple. Delay anything that locks your future while your judgment is still adjusting. Because once something is committed, it rarely feels easy to undo. And when the novelty fades, something else appears. Year two. Somewhere around month 14, maybe 18, something quiet happens. It's not a crash, it's a fade. The places are still beautiful, the food is still good, the weather is still perfect, but your brain stops reacting the same way. Because novelty has a limit, and eventually it stops rewarding repetition. Retirement stops feeling like an experience and starts feeling like normal life. This is where the real test begins. The Tuesday test. A normal Tuesday. Rainy season, no plans, no structure, nothing pulling you anywhere. Just a full day of empty space. What does that feel like? If it feels easy to fill, you'll likely adapt. If it feels uncomfortable, that matters. Because that feeling isn't Thailand. It's what's left when structure disappears. Back home, life is built on obligation. Work, family, errands, commitments. Not freedom, but structure. Retirement removes that. And moving countries removes the rest. So you're left with time, and time becomes the test. At first it's harmless, a beer at lunch just to pass the time, but repetition becomes structure. Same place, same people, same time of day. Not chosen, just filled. And if you don't build structure deliberately, it builds itself. The men who adapt don't chase stimulation. They create rhythm here. Gym, walking, language, work, a project, something repeatable. Because structure doesn't appear by accident. And without it, boredom takes over quietly. Something shifts in year three, and it doesn't announce itself. It's quiet. It shows up in ordinary places. A hospital waiting room, an immigration office, a pharmacy counter where you're trying to explain something you never had to explain before. And suddenly, retirement stops feeling like lifestyle and starts feeling like responsibility. This is the first real reminder that you are aging in a country that is not your own. Maybe it starts small, a chest tightness, a knee that feels less stable, a blood test that gets attention. Nothing dramatic, but something changes internally. Because I'll deal with health later stops being casual and starts sitting in your mind at 2 a.m. I spoke with a long-term expat in Jomtien. I asked what he would do differently. Two things: health insurance from day one and Thai language properly early. Because language doesn't matter when life is easy. It matters when life isn't. In a hospital trying to explain symptoms with someone waiting for clarity you can't quite give. And suddenly, optimism from year one disappears. Then there's health reality. A 72-year-old expat I spoke to had built a good life here, stable, comfortable. Then came major surgery, bypass and hip replacement. He recovered, he's still here, but what he said stayed with me. When I chose where to live at 50, I wasn't thinking about 72. Motorbike roads, nightlife, convenience, social life. Not hospitals, not stairs, not access. And that's the shift. You realise you're not just living as you are now. You are becoming the version of yourself who will still be here in 15 years. And those two versions don't always match. This is foresight, not lifestyle. Then comes visa reality. Paperwork, renewals, waiting, systems, repeat the cycles. Not difficult, but constant. And repetition tests your patience. Year 1 thinks visas are one time. Year 3 learns they are ongoing. This is where mindset matters more than knowledge. Because men from efficient systems struggle here. Not because it's broken, but because expectations are. That's where one idea matters. Jayin, which means in Thai, cool hard. The ability to sit and wait without it turning into stress for you. Because you can't fix the system. You just decide how to respond to it. And by the end of year 3, retirement is no longer a holiday. It's maintenance, structure, health, paperwork, planning. And that shift filters people. Some adapt, some leave, not because they hate Thailand, but because they never adjusted to what living here actually requires. And that leads into something deeper, internal pressure. By year 4, most visible problems are solved. Visa done, insurance sorted, routine in place. Even the Tuesday test stops feeling like a test. On paper, everything is stable. And that's when something else appears. Something quieter. Something most men miss at first. Because nothing is wrong, but something feels missing. Boredom isn't harmless. It doesn't just pass time. Left long enough, it reshapes a man. Purpose isn't optional in retirement. It's structural, like a fountain under a house. You don't notice it when it's there, but you absolutely notice it when it's gone. A lot of men retire from something, a job, a routine, a pressure they were relieved to escape. And for a while, that relief carries everything. But by year 4, it runs out and drift begins. Less structure, less reason to go out, less engagement. Not collapse, just a slow drift. I knew a man who came here at 50, full of energy. For years that energy had somewhere to go. But later something shifted. A quiet restlessness. Not failure, not crisis, just flatness. Until he joined a small project at 68. Nothing big, but it required him again. His time, his attention, and he said it was about being needed on a Tuesday for a reason that mattered. That's the pattern. They have something that pulls them forward, something that requires them to show up. Because without that, days blur, weeks repeat, life becomes comfortable, but directionless. From the outside, nothing looks wrong, but sit long enough and you notice it. Not sadness, just absence. And by the time it's obvious, it's been there for years. That's why this phase matters. Because it's not a crisis, it's a direction. Either built early or lost slowly. And this is where year 5 really lives. Not a new problem, not a new phase, just the final stage of something that's already been building for years. Where life isn't collapsing, it's simply settling into whatever structure you built or didn't build earlier on. 5 years, 5 phases, each one tests something different. Year 1 tests discipline. Year 2 tests structure. Year 3 tests foresight. Year 4 and 5 test purpose. So if we simplify it, don't commit too early. Rent first, observe first, decide later. Because early confidence isn't long-term clarity. Build structure before freedom dissolves it. Because a relaxed life still needs rhythm. Without it, time expands. Run the Tuesday test honestly. Not on your ideal life, but on a normal day with nothing happening. Because that's where real life lives. Plan for your 75-year-old self, not just the arrival version, but the version still here when everything slows down. And finally, find something that makes you show up. Not entertainment, not distraction, something that would matter if you didn't do it. Because retirement in Thailand isn't a single decision. It's adaptation, year by year. And the men who do well here aren't perfect. They're aware. They adjust. They don't protect the idea at the cost of reality. Because this place doesn't reward perfection. It rewards awareness. So let me ask you something simple. Where are you in this? Early phase, middle phase, or further along? Drop it in the comments below. Because sometimes the most useful insight isn't the video itself. Thanks for listening today, guys, and I'll see you on the next one.